A pleasure and honor today having this guest here with us on the Power Transformation Podcast, and that is Katina Horton. And the work she is doing is trailblazing, and she's changing the lives of so many people. So, welcome to the show, Katina. I'm so happy to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here. Yes, truly a blessing.
Indeed, indeed. And we are going to get right into this and learn more about who you are and how you serve in your journey because you have such a powerful story of transformation. But prior to us doing that, I always like to start with just a lighthearted icebreaker question so that we can get to know more of you, who you are
Right.
as a person. And so this is your question.
Okay.
Katina, seasons are changing. It's fall
Yes.
time now. But if we could say fall, winter, spring, or summer, what is your favorite season and what do you like to do during those times?
Believe it or not, my favorite season is the fall. And it's been
Oh,
like that ever since I was a little girl. Yep. Since I was 9 years old. Fall has been my favorite season. And what I like about the fall is just, like I said, even goes back to then, me walking on the sidewalk, walking down the street and just feeling the clean, crisp, cool air,
yes.
taking in the leaves that's falling off the trees. It's kind of like a magical feel. The
Mhm.
colors, the smell of the air, watching the sunsets and how they're more vibrant then, the closer it gets to winter, I noticed that the colors that comes out with the sunsets are more vibrant. And
Mhm.
then it's just a lot of beauty that's around. Like I said, between the colors of the leaves, and you've got all of the mahoganies and the pinks and the purples and the wines, and you got some of the oranges and reds, and it's just gorgeous. So just taking all of that in. A lot of nature, I guess I would say. And during that time, I like to take a lot of walks. I like to take in the sunsets. I like to do activities with life giving friends and family. And just being able to sit and have more mindfulness. And then also, it's a fun time where you can sit back and watch movies, read a book. I do that anyway, but I'm saying when the fall sets in, it's almost like your body's like, hint, hint, it's that time. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? It's that
I
season.
do.
Put the cozy socks on, have your lounge clothes on, your robe, and,
Mhm.
tied, and you are, watching movies or, some type of show that
Mhm.
makes you feel good and relaxed and all of that, and or reading a book or listening to music and just
Yeah.
enjoying yourselves. Yeah. So it just, yeah, it brings back memories, like I said, ever since childhood of being able to do that. And you know what else I like about this time of the year? I I'm an aesthetic person. And
Mhm.
so, and I like colors. And so what I like is to see all of the fun colors, even not just the leaves on the trees and outside in the nature, but I like to see all of the different fun colors of the hats and the scarves and the gloves and boots and
Yeah.
outfits.
Oh,
I like to see all of that.
that's right. Yes, and I love the way that you described it because fall seems to encompass so much. I like summer, but I
Okay.
like how you explain fall because it's life-giving, refreshing, rejuvenating, and just your details of it. And honestly, Katina, if I think about it, it sounds a lot like how our lives are as people, as how we go through
Mhm.
different changes and
Yeah.
transformations to get us to be who we are today. And it begs this question for me. If a person were to ask you this question, how would you respond? Who is Katina Horton?
Katina Horton. Katina Horton is a woman of God,
Mm,
a child of God, a person of faith, gracious,
mm.
kind, compassionate, considerate, at times silly,
Yes.
purity,
Mm,
um, bubbly,
mm.
life giving, merciful. What else would I say about myself? Fun,
Hmm.
fun loving, kindred spirit.
Mm.
I'm trying to think of what else would I say. Yes, that's probably what I would say who I am.
So now that we know more about who you are, tell us exactly what you do. Just take a couple of minutes and I'll then talk more about your journey in getting there. But simply, what do you do and how do you help people?
Sure. So what I do is that I am a toxic relationship recovery coach. Okay. I'm a storyteller, a poet, author, speaker, podcaster,
Mhm.
brand and business strategist. So those are all the different things, praise dancer. So it's a lot of different things that I do, but they all go up underneath the umbrella of my mission, which is helping women who are either in or recovering from toxic relationships, either with themselves and or others, to regain clarity on love and freedom, right? And to build resilience and flourish. And then they're also helping them to break unhealthy relationship patterns, right? And to release control. And then what that does is that it transforms them into reclaiming their power, their soul, and their identity so that they will know that they're enough. So that's the nutshell of two businesses, yeah, in one. Mhm.
Now, that is very interesting to say the least. And that's not something that a person comes to overnight. So tell us exactly what led you down this path. What was the catalyst of you saying, I want to serve people in this way?
So the catalyst for that was I was in the process, believe it or not, of going through a divorce.
Mm,
And as I was going through, I think it was right before I had filed, because I knew that it was the writing was on the wall that that's where it was headed, right?
mhm.
And so right before I filed, I had decided that I would write an autobiography telling my story, and just with hopes that me telling my story would actually be the impetus for other women to say, hey, maybe I'm in this type of situation. I didn't know it was going to go as far as to I'm thinking, okay, in the beginning, initially it was just telling my story. Maybe these women could see themselves in it. Because when we read stories, sometimes we don't make connections about our own childhood trauma and memories
Mhm.
until we read a book, or hear somebody else talking about it. We go hear a speaker or go to a conference or a retreat. So my
Yeah.
hopes was that reading my story, something would click and they would go, oh, this is what I'm in. You see what I'm saying? And they would be able to understand so that they can take the necessary steps to start healing or make whatever decisions they needed to make. That's what it was initially, me just doing an autobiography, slowly starting to write it. But what
Mm,
happened was, and that was in 2013, because I didn't get divorced until April of 2014. But in the
okay.
process, you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I didn't publish that book because I kept starting and stopping because of all the trauma associated with writing it. And
Yeah.
not just the trauma associated with writing it, but the trauma that I was and PTSD that I was going through on a daily basis, because of my situation. So I got that book published in March of 2016. And that was the first book. And then I said, oh, you know what? Maybe I'll have a website that'll be called the Valley of Grace. And this will be a way for me to go out there and write blog posts. This will be another medium. I got the books, and maybe I can write posts where people can go out there and read different posts and they can find different things that they can relate to. And then it went from that to like, oh, the podcast will be another medium. If they don't like reading, they might want to listen to the podcast. You see what I'm saying? So it's like the different things got built on one at a time. It wasn't like all at once. And then I even wrote a book called The Valley of Grace, which basically it's a poetry and DIY book and a devotional book. It's a 3-in-1 book, right? And with the DIY, it shows you how to do simple things in your home without spending a lot of money. Whether
Mm,
you're recycling, upcycling, Um, even if you had to go and buy things from the store, because I know a lot of women who are in situations that I was in,
Mm.
they a lot of them, even if they're educated women, their spouses and or significant others were the breadwinners. A lot of them have decided, I'll stay home with the kids. Like in
Oh,
my case, I'll stay home and homeschool. You see what I'm saying? Even with a degree, and they might have done minimal work or no work, and their main focus was on raising their kids, and then
uh-huh.
not knowing that later on they've got like this battle ahead of them, and they're like financially, devastated, literally. That's what happens to a lot of the women who are in toxic relationships. They've decided to stay home and, you know, uh, take care of the kids. But what happens is that the downside of that is that if you're in a toxic relationship and you leave, even with calling yourself having the best plan, you still can end up being financially devastated, if that makes
Oh,
sense,
yeah.
because you don't know if the courts are going to rule in your favor. And
Mhm.
so my idea with that book, with the Valley of Grace, give them the devotional, give them the poetry to help them heal, give them simple DIY things they can do in their homes with what they have, or if they have to buy some things, as cheap as possible, but it still looks good, that type of thing.
Got
And
you.
so, yeah.
Let's kind of go back some. So you knew that it was time to leave your marriage, and of course,
hmm
so much happened afterwards. But take us back briefly to part of your upbringing. When you were growing up, were you around situations where there were healthy relationships, or how did your observance of relationships in general in your youth affect you as an adult?
Well, if there were very few healthy relationships that I was
Oh,
around,
okay.
very few.
Hmm.
I might have seen a few healthy relationships with people at church, with some of the couples at church, because I became a
Oh,
Christian at 8 years old. Like in
hmm.
my own family, although they've got love for each other, you
Hmm.
still got the trauma of slavery, right?
Yes.
You got a lot of the post traumatic slave syndrome in there. You got a lot of the trauma from slavery playing a role. And then you've got trauma and brokenness within the family unit itself, and intergenerational trauma. And then unfortunately, the way that people in my family dealt with pain would either be, so I would say on the calmer end, and not saying one is better than the other. I would
Of
say the
course,
calmer
yeah.
would be having extreme OCD,
Hmm.
perfectionism, that's what part of my brokenness, right? That I've had to work on healing and chiseling away from. So you've got, like I said, the calmer end would be extreme OCD, perfectionism. Then the not so calmer end would be drug addiction,
Hmm.
alcohol addiction. You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Those two
indeed.
things. And
Mhm.
by those being high on the list, you've got those playing a role, and then you've got situations where if the parents had the kids young, and or like say for instance with my grandmother, her mother died when she was very young, and so when
Oh,
you don't have that motherly figure and you're being raised by a father, you do the best that you can. You see what I'm saying? With what you have. And so then what happens is it also leads to the case of basically if you have children who have kids, like I had teenage parents and they did the very best that they could in
mhm.
raising me. They
Yes.
also brought into that their own trauma. You understand what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
I
And
do.
so when you look at that dynamic, my mother, with her perfectionism and expecting, that was part of her trauma, that fear based trauma response in her. And it got placed onto me, have the
Hmm.
demands of me having to meet those needs of being perfect, right, as a child. But like I said, to keeping in mind that, she was a teenager herself. So when you have that, and then having me with those high expectations, then my trauma response was either my trauma response was going to be either to rebel against the system or to fawn slash
Hmm.
please appease. You see what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yes,
And that was
indeed.
by me being the rule abiding individual I was going to find. You see what I'm saying? And so then perfectionism became part of my operating system, which the underneath the I would say the underlayment slash foundation of that is I'm not enough. You see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? When it comes
Mm-hmm.
to the perfection, is that limiting belief of I'm not enough. So by us having all of that as the background foundation, and you have all those different addictions in place, then that leads to you seeing a lot of tense moments, a lot of fighting, a lot of anger. There was a lot of love,
Yeah.
and there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of trauma built around anger and fighting. You see what I'm
Wow.
saying? And
I
emotional
do.
abuse and verbal abuse and physical abuse. And
Mm-hmm.
he's seeing that. And even as a child, my parents and I, we lived with my grandmother up until I was 8 years old. This is the south side of Chicago in
Mm-hmm.
Madden Park Homes, which is the projects. And it was in Bronzeville.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was in
Mm.
Bronzeville.
Wow.
Yes. And
And for people who don't know, Bronzeville is filled with so much historic culture and just so much in its heyday. And Bronzeville is a very notable section of Chicago. Yes. Mm-hmm.
yes. And so the
Wow.
thing was, like when they thought about, okay, the projects, we're going to throw all these people here because we can just get rid of them. The one
Uh-huh.
thing about it is where we were located in Bronzeville, where Madden Park Homes was literally right off the lake. So even though we
Wow.
were living in the projects, this was prime real estate. All me
That's
and my
right.
cousins had to do was leave from there, go walk through the alley, go up to like past this little one spot that was called the Hilltop. It was a lounge. Go up there and over the bridge, and we're on the beach. I mean,
Wow.
we're like chilling. We're right there on Lake Michigan. Lakeshore Drive is right there. And
Hmm.
so, wonderful childhood and everything. 3 years of, no, at the age of 8, I was there with my grandparents, all the way up to the age of 8, with my grandmother, rather. That was me and my parents and my at my grandmother's house. But at 8 years old, then I transitioned over and moved further south, right? Too close to like the Chatham, and I can't remember the other neighborhood area. So we were on 80th and Ellis at this point. But my grandmother still stayed there in Bronzeville, and my
Hmm.
mother still had me going to the grammar school there
Wow.
in the neighborhood that my grandmother lived in, right? Because it was easy for her because she didn't work too far from where my grandmother lived. So to keep me over there, just taking the bus and going back and forth, right? Even though I moved. And so we moved, and it was like it's kind of like, you had the Jeffersons, and you're moving on up to the east
Yes.
side to a deluxe apartment in the sky. So it was like
Hmm.
moving on up as far as, okay, both of my parents working together. They had two incomes. We were able to move to our own apartment. I had access to more material things. We had cable TV and access to more material things. However, it was a bump down in the family dynamics because
Hmm.
I saw this loving relationship between my parents and my grandmother's house. But once we moved, then what happened? It was I began to see the physical abuse and violence on a regular basis, between my dad towards my mom. And I hadn't witnessed that. So that was like a major, major transition for me once we moved to our own apartment.
Wow.
And then, but the second major transition is I became a Christian at age 8 as well. So we moved at age 8, and then my mother's friend invited us, kept on inviting us to church. Oh, we're gonna go. Come on, you and Tina need to go. And my mother, oh, we're gonna come. But we never went. And then she made it sound so good, talking about her nieces were going there and all of that. And I kept wearing my mother down. Finally, she said, okay, Tina, we're gonna go. And so we went to church and ended up joining the church, accepting Christ in our hearts, and got baptized the following Sunday
Wow.
at the Easter sunrise service. So we ended up going on Palm Sunday. And so, and like I said, I was 8 years old at the time. So that was very transformational for me. Like I said, two things though. So I had there was like three different worlds. There was the world at the apartment where me and my parents stayed in. And unfortunately, they only stayed together for 3 years, right? Before my dad left. But I had the
Okay.
world at church, that big community of love. And that's what my whole Christian foundation was at that church, right?
Mhm.
And then I had the world of the Bronzeville world, right? Which involved my grandmother's house. And even though because of their brokenness, it was the chaos and confusion, I still felt loved in that. You see what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
I
So if it
do.
was confusion at home, violence and fighting broke out, we're packing bags, overnight bags, we're heading to my grandmother's house. So,
Mm,
at her house, it was like that covering. Everybody came to Madia's house. That's what we called my grandmother.
yeah.
And then I also had, there was a whole nother world at school. And that
Mm,
was the academic world and the world that I love doing the spelling bees and oratorical competitions
mm.
and all of that. And not knowing that God was going to use all of that to make me into who and transform me into who I am today.
Exactly. And you had a wealth of experiences and people and interactions throughout your life. And sometimes people can wonder, like, okay, yes, you may have had these types of environments that you witnessed as a child between your parents, and that can have a direct influence on your relationship life in the future. And so, fast forward to when you recognized that, okay, this relationship is toxic. But let me actually throw out here this. We often now in 2025 say the word, oh, that person's toxic or this relationship's toxic. What
Mm-hmm.
exactly does it mean for a person to be in a toxic relationship? And what were some of the signs you saw in your own marriage where you knew this was something that was not healthy for you?
Sure. So, for signs of being in a toxic relationship, is when you cannot be yourself.
Mm,
You are depending upon someone to basically give you an operating system and you to run by that operating system, basically to be a clone of them
mm,
or whatever kind of clone they've made in the factory for you to be, either clone of them or whatever they've configured in their head for you and have set up for you. This is what they want you to be. You see what I'm saying? So when you cannot be yourself freely, who God created you to be, your birthright, you're
mm-hmm.
in a toxic relationship. When you have and like even for some of the signs too, is that people who are toxic are often inconsistent. I never forget I was in attending a church service in northern Lake County, not north of Chicago at a church, and the pastor said, "You know what? Some of you guys are very consistent." He said, "But you consistently inconsistent." So that's and I sat there and I had
Uh-huh.
to think about it for a minute. I said, "Oh."
Yeah,
That was really when I thought about it, I was like, huh.
that's good.
It took me a minute, but they
Uh-huh.
are people who are toxic are often consistently inconsistent. And it's with everything. You
Mm,
see what I'm saying? If
good.
you notice it, they have double standards. Because sometimes people say, oh, that person talks blah, blah. You can't take one thing. You have to look at all of them. And I see why they say
Yes.
with the psychologist and the therapist, especially, you got to look at a combination of everything that's listed. So, like I said, consistently inconsistent. They judge, criticize, and condemn other people. And there's always a double standard. They hold themselves to one standard and hold everybody else to an entirely different standard.
Mm-hmm.
They manipulate, they triangulate, they project
Mm-hmm.
what they won't own onto you and everybody else. And they lie. They are pathological liars. They will gaslight. And when it's gaslighting is basically saying and or doing something to someone that helps them to make them think that they're crazy. It's basically
Oh,
changing their reality. You see what I'm saying? And twisting around things to make that individual think they're crazy. And it also helps the gaslighter to avoid accountability and taking responsibility for those words and or actions.
That's right. That's right. Wow. And for you to have that realization that this was something that was not good for you, how did that change you and transform you into healing? What was that healing process like for you, Katina?
Okay, so we go back to 2012, literally. And I had got to the point of, as the scripture talks about, um, when they say that hope deferred makes the heart grow sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you get to in a toxic relationship, because they have future faked and future faked and future faked. And when I say future faked, oh, baby, we're going to do this. I'm going to get better. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. And you keep on holding on to that
Yeah.
hope and hoping and praying and wishing. You don't have any evidence, but you just keep hoping and praying and wishing that what they say is going to be the case, right? And so what
Mm-hmm.
happens is you get to the point where they've strung you along for so long, literally strung you along, that you walking around in a heart sickened state.
That's
So
right.
then I'm at that point, and then my ex-husband said, I'm thinking about leaving the marriage.
Oh,
Right. And this was right before we were scheduled to go on vacation. And
wow.
so he said that. I found a therapist, called and left a voicemail, scheduled an appointment actually with her, called and left voicemail, scheduled an appointment, all of that, and then canceled it.
Mm.
Yes,
Interesting.
canceled it. Yes, very interesting. That was in May. And then what
What
happened
caused you to
was,
cancel it?
said again,
What caused you to cancel it?
I chickened out and thought things was going to
Mm-hmm.
get better. They appeared like they were going to get better. And they always do when you with someone that has a spirit of narcissism in them. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
get these mean and sweet cycles, the breadcrumb cycles, and like I said, the future faking. Because there's what happens is what's confusing for a person when they're in a toxic relationship, you'll see behavior modification, but
Mm-hmm.
there's no heart transformation,
Yes. Oh,
which is
say
two different
so.
things. You
Oh,
understand what I'm
my.
saying?
Yes, indeed.
So because of the
Behavior
behavior modification,
modification with
yes,
no heart.
without the heart.
Please say it again. People need to hear this. Say it again.
Yes,
What
and
did
you'll see the behavior modification without the hard transformation. So you see the behavior modification, you're like, oh yeah, maybe it was just me.
Mm,
Yeah, maybe things are gonna work out right. Maybe he's not gonna leave. Maybe things are gonna be okay. We went on that last vacation, and it was literally one from straight from the pit.
mm,
When I say straight from the pit, like Satan himself has sent it. Out of all the vacations we gone on with, with the kids, we'd always had the time of our life, but it was the one literally sent straight from the pit.
ooh,
And I got back, and guess what Tina did? I picked up that phone and I scheduled an appointment, and I kept that appointment. And
mm,
every week things were getting, it was something going on, several things every week. And my therapist finally said, you know what? She was just like, there's something that's just not right here. How about you
mhm,
guys do a 3 month in-house separation? Because see, when I went in to see if it was something I was doing, because I was
mhm,
trying to save my marriage, right? But in the
mhm.
process, I realized I needed to save Tina.
That's
You
right.
see what I'm saying? And if the marriage had to go, it had to go. So she said, do a 3 month in-house separation. We'll see where things go here. That 3 month in-house separation was what I call a be still and no moment. So I could have a come to Jesus moment, right?
Mhm,
I surrendered.
mhm,
She said, you're not focused on anything he's doing. You're focusing on yourself. The moment I started doing that, start plugging into community, had them to back me up, I started seeing what was my issues, what was his issues, what were the marital problems, just stuff that I have nothing to do with as far as
yeah,
what was going on with him. But that come to Jesus moment, that surrender, releasing that control of the outcome, even if it
mm,
wasn't in my favor, was what I needed to do in order to be able to know what to do once those 3 months were over. And once they were over, before they were even over, they were midway, and I knew that it was headed towards divorce. I knew that that's what it was because he'd already said he was thinking about it, and then it just got. And I said, "Well, just admit it. This is where you're gearing towards. This is the direction you're heading. So instead of stringing us along, the kids and I, this is where you're heading. Admit it, and let's
Mm,
move on from there." And
mm.
so, it was a 3 month in house, and then within 3 months of that, he left. He left the marital residence, and it was not too long after. Probably like it was in what 20 that was in 2013. I filed for divorce, and it was a 1 year process. But when I say it was a painful 3 months and a painful 3 months after that, before he left, so a good 6 months of
Months, yeah.
literally straight from the pit of being traumatized every day and high levels of trauma to the point of having PTSD, flashbacks, all of that. But it was that
And sometimes people think that PTSD is only if you go and fight in a war overseas. No, that can happen from any
it
deep-rooted
can.
trauma.
Oh my gosh! And what happened too? This is the crazy thing about it. What happened is when he said he was thinking about leaving, something in my brain clicked,
Hmm.
and every traumatic thing I had gone through in childhood, that door opened that I didn't even realize was trauma.
Wow.
On top of everything I was already going through, something opened that door, and it went back to the day my mother and I got home. I was over my grandmother's house. She came
Mhm.
over after work, then we left and got on the Cottage Grove bus over in Bronzeville, headed home to 80th and Ellis. And we get home and open that door, and the whole apartment was almost completely empty, and my dad leaving.
Wow.
So, and I guess that happened because, see, my daughter was the same age when my ex said he was thinking about leaving. See what I'm
Mm,
saying?
I
And it's
do.
like that intergenerational, multi-generational trauma. My mother's father passed away around the same age that we were. So it was,
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, when
Wow.
she moved to
That's
Chicago was
like,
right around that time that her father, had passed away anyway. That her family had split from, her parents no longer being together and all
mm,
of that. So it was, like I said, things repeat themselves that 11, 12, 11, 12, 11, 12-ish area. I was 11 years old. And my world also came crashing down at that time because of the fact that you go from seeing your dad every day, this hardworking man, to now he's gone. And then you got to move again. And then you get bumped down material wise, even though
uh-huh.
he needed to, it wasn't working well with them. They didn't need to be together. But that was like the second part of the trauma cycle that took me to that
Right.
direction, of finding someone like that. Because it started off, it's like through healing, you realize sometimes you think, well, you thought you knew what the beginning was, but you didn't. And I thought the
Mhm.
beginning was my dad leaving and abandoning me at 11. The beginning was the perfectionism that was expected upon me as a child by my
That's
mom.
right.
Then number two was my dad leaving. You see what I'm saying? And that was the catalyst for me choosing the mate that I chose. You see what I'm
Wow.
saying?
I do,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the victories is that you during that time of separation, you got and gained clarity. And this is what you like to teach a lot of the people that you serve is how to release control to get clarity and making the right decisions. And although we don't have a lot of time left, I want us to really touch on that too is how do you show and lead and guide women to get to that point of giving up the control, getting the clarity, and learning to make the right decisions moving forward? And how did you do that for yourself?
Sure. So in order for me doing that for myself was, like I said, what started is with the therapist suggesting that 3 month
Uh-huh.
in-house. And it was the most painful thing to me, but I didn't know that it was going to help to really save me because by me totally focusing on myself and taking care of the kids and not being bothered with what he was doing and was doing, wasn't doing, that
Mm-hmm.
clarity came in. And once I got clarity, it was clear as day. I just slowly and was in that community I needed. That gave me the support. It was like that support up underneath me, that community at church and the small groups, and gaining the
Mm-hmm.
clarity and staying in therapy. Even as painful as it was, it gave me what I needed, and staying in the word of God and my faith. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
the foundation as well. That's what gave me what I needed to move forward. As long as I was moving like the Energizer Bunny, like I tell the women, the commercial, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you have that perfectionism, which is rooted in trauma, it's fear based of
Mm-hmm.
not being enough. When you're thriving off of that and you just keep going, your body keeps telling you can't stop. But see, as long as you keep moving, you're not going to feel because the movement eliminates you feeling. You see what I'm
Yes,
saying? The
I
busyness
do.
eliminates clarity. The busyness eliminates that release of control. You see what I'm saying? That surrendering to God, the outcome. You see what I'm
Mm,
saying? So helping
I
them to
do.
understand, trying to see what is it that they need and what is it that they want. Because what we need and what we want are two different things a lot of times.
Mhm.
We might
Yeah.
want 50 pair of shoes. We really might need 10. Some for
Mm,
work, some for play. You see what I'm saying? Some for church or whatever. But we want the 50. You see what I'm saying? But our soul helping them to see there's something that your soul, the mind, the body, the soul, and spirit is desired, the heart, and you're filling it with the control.
mm,
So helping them to see that. What place, you know what I'm saying? What is control giving you?
mm-hmm.
Because we're only gonna keep doing something because we're receiving a benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
So helping
And
them to break that down and to see where they want to be. And also helping them to see they think that a lot of them become disempowered from being in a toxic relationship, and helping them to understand that not making a decision is still making a decision because you're making a decision
it
not to
really
do it anyway.
is.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Uh-huh. It
Yeah, but
really
helping them
is. I like that.
understand that. Hmm.
Yeah. And yes, when you're indecisive with something, that's something that you're choosing to be, and it's a
Right.
decision moving forward with that. And so, with how you serve and the work that you do now, what is the one area of your life, especially thinking about this concept of resiliency, transformation, breakthroughs,
Right.
overcoming challenges? What has been the biggest key piece of your transformation? How are you a different person now than how you were then, just over a decade ago?
The biggest piece of knowing that I'm enough because of the
Ooh.
work done on the cross for me.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? Like, no matter what somebody else says, what somebody else thinks, knowing I'm enough because he said I was enough to die
Yeah.
for. You understand what I'm
Yes,
saying? And
yes.
so, because of God's love for me and knowing that he sent his son to do the work, I don't have to do the work. You see what I'm saying? And so that was like the biggest aha moment for me. I can release the control. You see
Hmm.
what I'm saying? And
Indeed.
also the biggest transformation would be even which is even within my coaching methodology and my book Love and Freedom, is understanding what love and freedom was all about. And it started in the Garden of Eden. God gave Adam, he let them roam free. He gave them one boundary, was not to to eat off the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
That's
And that was
right.
the one boundary. You see what I'm saying? They could do anything. They focused on the one thing. Satan got them to focus on the one thing that they could not do. But he
That's right.
let them go ahead. He didn't control them. He didn't force them not to do what it was he didn't want them to do. He gave them free reign. He don't force any kind of relationship, because if he forced it, then it wouldn't be love. And so
Hmm.
when we force, we have to be able to and part of that too, we have to be able to let people be who they are, even if who they are doesn't work well with who we are.
Hmm.
And when we're
Cool.
free to let people, when we have love and freedom, when we allow people to choose, the relationships work out better that way. Even if what's going to end up happening is that person is going to be released from your life. But we really understand love, that we don't have to control people. We don't have to make them clones of us
That's
or
right.
into whatever factory, little thing like we're in a factory and we making them into who we want them to be. And see, we
Mhm.
want that. We do that because it's easier for us. If they're a clone of us, it's easier for us to be able to digest if they do exactly what we do. But it's some need that's being met if we need to be able to control others. So that was what was really life transforming for me, going back to the Garden of Eden and looking at the love that God has for us and
Mhm.
how it's full of free will, it's all choice. And the fact that when we try to control, we're just going to resist in the first place because it's not how we were created.
Mhm.
So when you're going back to that natural creation, and our birthright of freedom, and that
Yeah.
we were allowed to choose, and we're still allowed to make that, to have the option of choice. So when we're trying to control other people, we're taking away their birthright freedom.
Wow.
You see what I'm
And
saying?
I certainly do. I certainly do see what you're saying. And I think that's such an important reminder because sometimes people have stipulations on healing or
Mm-hmm.
no, I can't if they don't do this. It's you doing the work. This is for you. That healing process is
Right.
yours and yours
Mm-hmm.
alone. And so it really doesn't matter whether or not that person changes. You would hope so, but as
Mm-hmm.
long as we are making sure that we're doing our part is what counts. And you do help, and I wish we could just go on and talk, but tell us how a person can connect with you if they want to buy your books, listen to your podcast, if they want to contact you for speaking purposes, coaching purposes. How can we connect? And of course, I'll have these in show notes also, but tell us how
Mm-hmm.
to contact you.
Sure. My website is thevalleyofgrace.com. And then I am on Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, all of social media as Katina Horton VGM. And the
Mm,
V stands for Valley, the G stands for Grace, and the M stands for Ministries. So Katina Horton VGM is my username on pretty much all of the sites. And but like I said, they go to the valleyofgrace.com. It'll be a link out there for the books. All of my books are on Amazon. And even if they look up my name on Amazon, if
mhm.
they didn't want to go to the website, for the website has everything, coaching and everything they can sign up for. If they
Yeah,
just want to say, okay, I just want the books, if you just go out to Amazon and type in Katina Horton, you should be able to find all of my 11 books. And I'm working on number 12 right now.
wonderful. I love it. I love it. And as a closing question for you,
Mm-hmm.
in thinking about this transformation that you made and God strengthened you to be able to get through it, as a closing thought for anybody listening to this, how do you personally know, Katina, that you are enough?
I know that I am enough because of, like I said, not just the work that was done for me on the cross, but because of the fact that I don't have to do, I can just be. I can
Mm,
be who I am. And as you asked me, who is Katina in the beginning? I can
right.
be all of those things and still be loved without any strings attached, without any conditions, without somebody having some expectations for me, having some type of transactional thing. I can just be, and I can still be loved. And that's one of the things that we as human beings, we desire love. We desire that fellowship and connection. We desire belonging and vulnerability. And when I can do all of those things and still be loved by God, then that way that I know that I'm enough.
And for any woman listening to that may not feel as if she is enough and say, wow, You feel this way, but I don't know. My situation has just been up and down over the years. Speak directly to her. What would you say?
And even though your situation has been up and down over the years, if you can just hang on to that little bitty string, and even if you just take that little bitty string, a little piece of it day by day, and start speaking life into your soul, bit by bit, and taking baby steps into healing, you will be able to have your heart and mind and soul and spirit opened up. Because I never thought that I would be able to get to the point that I'm at today, and I'm still healing. Healing is, to me, is a lifelong journey. I never would have thought that, because I thought that I was not enough. And I realized that one of the things I say too is that when you look at something, when it comes to once we start healing a little bit at a time, like I say, it can be baby steps,
Hmm.
then we get to the point of being able to dissect our identity. When you look at something, no matter what it is, even if I just looked at the ring or the bracelet on my hand, it's like we always identify something, right? It's part of the identity. We look at something, we identify it. We
Hmm.
identify that thing. And once we identify it, we attach value to it. So once we are doing the healing work, our identity changes. The value we attach to that identity changes. And then it will force us to set up boundaries to protect what we value. So if we got jewelry, we've identified this jewelry as valuable, we're going to do what? We're going to set up every kind of boundary in the world to protect it from somebody taking it. Once we start healing, we're going to protect and we understand who we are and who we are to God. We're going to do everything we can to protect that identity, because we know we are valuable, that we're royalty, that we're kings and queens, etc. Right? In the kingdom. And it doesn't matter who tells us whatever, we already have that foundation. But it starts with taking the little baby steps and holding on to that string, even when you feel like you don't have anything else left. But just to know that just little bit of hope, a little bit of faith, the size of a mustard seed, it moves mountains.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Power Transformation Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. It helps us inspire even more listeners. And don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use a little power in their transformation. Until next time, keep bouncing back, keep rising, and be good to yourself and to others.